how an upcoming Supreme Court ruling could wipe out a Prop 50 victory. Let's see. Goes on to say, but a lawsuit before the U.S. Supreme Court may put the legitimacy of Prop 50's maps in jeopardy should it pass along with other district maps nationwide. In Louisiana v. Cali, I'm going to pretend it's pronounced Cali. I don't know how it's really pronounced. The High Court will decide whether a state's intentional consideration of race to create these major majority-minority voting districts violates the Constitution's Equal Protection Clause. Goes on to talk about how the court may go farther to use Cali to invalidate Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act altogether. Under certain circumstances, Section 2 requires states to draw maps to consolidate minority voters in a way that, in theory, makes it more likely that minority-preferred candidates will be elected. Before the map becomes final, interest group complaints or litigation can result in draft maps being revised to include more or fewer voters of a certain race, which is another race-conscious process. The Supreme Court may hold that such race-conscious redistricting violates the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause and throw out Section 2. That's a problem for California because its existing map and the proposed map under Prop 50 are race-conscious, as the nonpartisan Public Policy Institute of California notes. California's existing map, drawn by the Citizens Redistricting Committee, had to satisfy Section 2, which meant using race drawing districts for voters of color. The think tank similarly found that the Prop 50 map largely matches the existing map, the sort of criteria the CRC was required to consider. So why is this a big deal? So Supreme Court is basically looking at the Voter Rights Act and determining, so it was the Voting Rights Act of around the 1960s was created and drawn into around the civil rights era to make sure there was equal representation. It was to kind of combat against Jim Crow laws that were creating districts that were leaving certain minorities out, that they were underrepresented. So they came up with the Voting Rights Act. Now they're going to look at it and say, is it a violation of the Equal Protection Clause if you have these districts where basically they're not really representative of the people who are there? Because you'll have a district where it's, there's a big block in one place, and then all of a sudden there's like a little arm or a tentacle that reaches out to grab other people to bring it into the district, which then violates equal protection because it's giving more weight to certain voters than those in the district. So if the Supreme Court, long story short, if the Supreme Court overrules Section 2 and throws this all out together, what could happen, and this is going to be heard, this is in the Supreme Court now, it's going to be heard by the Supreme Court, so they're probably going to get a decision next year. Usually you get a decision late in like early spring or summer before they go away on their summit. They like to drop all these bombs and then run off to their vacation homes, which I don't blame them because some of them are so controversial. If they drop this early next summer, that means that a lot of people can jump into federal court and say, wait a second, all these districts that were redrawn under Prop 50 violate this new ruling by the Supreme Court and it's been overruled, which could change everything. Now imagine the chaos if a court finds out and goes, well, yeah, we got to follow the Supreme Court and we got to, we have to listen to this. Now you got to redraw the districts again. Like we may be looking at, there's a possibility that next summer there could be a mad dash to figure out what the districts are going to be under a new Supreme Court ruling that gets rid of Section 2 and all of this gerrymandering. So Prop 50, for the amount of money they spent on it, may all be for naught. Like it may not matter in the end because litigation could happen. The districts are gerrymandered. It violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. And here we go. Districts have to be redrawn again.
So if the Supreme Court rules this way, and then if people start going to court and then they win, we wouldn't go back to the maps that were redrawn in the 2020. We wouldn't just revert back to the original decision. We would start from scratch again?
I would think, well, based on this, what the Public Policy Institute is saying is that the old maps drawn in 2020 still met those criteria of Section 2, which means you couldn't revert back to those because those are also a violation of Section 2. So new maps would have to be drawn altogether. But this also presents an issue because we now voted to give away the power to the Independent Redistricting Commission to the legislature. So now the legislature may have to hastily redraw districts next summer, and they have to abide by this possible new ruling. It's quite a mess, and it's kind of like it's why we got into this in the first place is because the Biden DOJ sued Texas over the Voting Rights Act and violations based on the districts that they drew. And then here we are, Texas had to redraw their districts. California saw it as an opportunity because Trump said something, made an off-comment remark. And then here we are with Prop 50. So this could throw 2026 into an absolute tizzy. Now, I don't know if it's even possible to get this all done, but who knows? Like, crazier things have happened if this does happen. So if anyone has any questions in the chat, let me know. But that's basically what could happen is, like, don't pop the champagne yet, because the Supreme Court could come in with this ruling and totally throw all of this out. Like, all these districts that they had Paul Mitchell draw up just for them could just be out the window by next summer anyway. So you have any thoughts on that?
I need a nap already. Okay, so obviously I knew we were talking about this tonight. You sent me this article. Oh, this is interesting. We should definitely talk about this. Yes, I read the article, but I did not understand what it meant until just now. So this is not like, again, I'm not having some false reaction on camera to be all like funny or dramatic or something like that. So I'm processing now this thought. And I just think, California, we have such voter fatigue. I know I do. And I've mentioned this before, we had the regular elections in 2020, and then we had the special election in 2021, and then we had our state election in 2022. And, and then 24 was like the national elections. And then here we are in 25 with the special election. And now it could all be for naught come next year. Mm-hmm. No wonder why people stay home.
Yeah.
No, not really. Don't stay
someone
home.
Someone had a question. Doesn't Prop 50 violate the spirit of the state constitution that we already voted on privatized redistricting? Can I add this to the... Oh, you can't really say it. That we already voted on private redistricting. Well, that's the thing, is that by voting on this proposition, you're voting to amend the Constitution, the California Constitution, temporarily in this time frame, which I think we've temporarily we've said this so many times before, as Gavin Newsom likes to use his hand gestures. There is never, give me an instance, if you know it, of any time that people have given the government temporary power and that they have willingly given that power back. I'll wait. I don't know of any examples. I mean, the Patriot Act, anybody? It's still law. The Patriot Act is still out there. And we thought, we're just going to do it because of 9/11, because of security. Nope, still have the Patriot Act, and it's been abused, and it's been used for wrongful purposes. It's been used against U.S. citizens to spy on U.S. citizens. No one's raising an eyebrow at that, but when you give temporary power to the government, it is very rare that they ever give it back. And I imagine by the time 2030 rolls around, they're probably going to, maybe now that the legislature has been in control for 5 years, they're going to be like, well, we've been doing such a good job, if we do say so ourselves. Why don't we just keep it? We don't, pat on the back. We did such an amazing job. We're in power. Like, we don't need to give this back. So, I don't know if anybody in the chat knows any temporary program. I'd love to hear it. I'll wait, but I don't think there's any.